Hello and welcome to my cooking channel. This is a special episode today because it's the very first episode I'm ever recording, and today I'm going to show you how to make a really simple spaghetti bolognese. It starts with the main ingredients: mushrooms, tomatoes, some sauce and meat. I'm using steak mince, British beef, lean, with 5% fat. There's a reason why I'm going there. I'll explain later when we've got a bit more time. I've also got cheese, which will be for later. And also sage. It's just an addition if I fancy using it. Let's see how it goes. Right, so start with 2 pans. We need to get the spaghetti out, which I did actually forget. So can't make spaghetti bolognese without spaghetti. So this is the spaghetti, and spaghetti is the first thing that goes on because it's the one that takes the longest to cook. Get a medium-sized pan, fill it up with water. Some people say put in hot water. I always use cold water and then bring it up to heat. It's just the way I work. So this one needs matches, so let's go with that. And we'll go. Right, so while that is bringing itself up to boil, I'll start cutting the vegetables. Now, how you cut your mushrooms is entirely up to you. I find that if I cut them in big chunks, they take slightly longer to cook, but they do taste much nicer. So that's what I'm going to do here. So, big slices. This is for 2 of us. Obviously you'd use more mushrooms if you have more people. I'm doing this live so that you can see straight away how long it takes to make this meal. I don't want any false hope that you watch these cooking shows and you see them do it in 5 minutes flat, and then when you actually do it, it takes you 2 hours. Because I speed it up. So that's why we're going to do it like this. And the tomatoes, they're really there to add a little bit more flavour to the sauce. You don't need the tomatoes in there. I just find that I like to have some fresh ingredients occasionally. So, before I cut my hand on live channel. And it doesn't matter how you cut them, as long as you cut them. At the end of the day, when they cook, it'll bring out the flavour of however they are. Oh, and anyone out there who is a cook will see that I'm cooking completely wrong, because I had no training in cooking. This is for people who have no training in cooking and just want to cook something really simple and fancy for their family without much hassle and without all the jargon you hear from these professional cooks. You see how I just changed the way I did the tomatoes. There's no rhyme or reason of how you want to actually chop them. You can do them however you want. Right, so this one is for the tomatoes and the mushrooms, and normally I would add a bit of sauce. But today I don't have any, oil. Today I don't have any oil, so a big replacement to that can be something like butter. Just lines the tin a little bit. Again, not something that they're taught by the master chefs out there, but it works. That's what counts. So, let that butter melt. Time to add the spaghetti. Now, I say the best way to add spaghetti, get a chunk of spaghetti like this, pop them in, swirl them around like this, and what happens is, as you swirl them, it feels a little hot, but we're men, we can handle it. And as you swirl them, the spaghetti actually starts to curl inside the pan. So, yeah. Basically you're making the spaghetti nice. Now, don't leave it like this, because if you do, you end up burning the spaghetti. It burns against the pan. just swirl that around a bit so I get the butter mounting nicely there. Yeah, see, it's not really hot enough yet for that. I'll come back to that. Right, so throw these in. Throw in the mushrooms first, because the mushrooms, well, when you cook them, they're white to start with, and as you cook them, they go brown and squidgy. I go by the rule that I cook the mushrooms until they look like slugs. If they look like slugs, then you've cooked them for long enough. Put the tomatoes in top, like this. Some people put the meat in first, but I put the veg in first because it shrinks, and then you can put the meat in slowly afterwards. There we go. So that's going to be cooking nicely, and as that happens, the juices from the mushroom and the tomatoes pour out and become liquid at the bottom of the pan. Keep stirring every now and then, otherwise they will stick to the bottom of the pan, and then you will end up with burnt vegetables, which of course is not something you want. Let me turn that down just a little bit so that can simmer, and I can go back to this, which is much hotter now. There we go. This is now really curling inside. I wish you could see this, but I can't bring it to the camera. Haven't got to that stage yet of having multiple cameras stuck around the kitchen, as it's the first video. See that? See how easy that went in? There we go. Use the spoon to help push it in. College students can do this. Really easy. Makes it look very impressive. Yeah, there we go. The pan's not really big enough for spaghetti. That's because I don't have much to choose from. And of course that's perfect for students, to know that you don't have to have massive amounts of pans to still cook really good, nice meals. So that's the first load of spaghetti in there. And I do notice that the water is not as full as I would hope it to be. So I'm just going to add a bit more water very quickly on the top, because I don't want it to burn. There we go. Right, more stirring of this. Okay. More stirring of this. Okay, so if I show you this, that's what I've got right now. Tomato on the floor. And a little bit further. Okay, right. Turned up the heat a little bit because I can now focus on this more. So if you put oil in here, you have to stir it a lot more, because it really sticks to with the oil, and there's a chance you can actually burn it. More likely to burn it that way than if you use butter. Okay, more spaghetti. Another wad. On another video I will show you how to make fresh spaghetti. It's not that hard. In fact, it's quicker to cook. It speeds up your cooking time by a good 10 minutes by using fresh spaghetti. Just while I'm doing this, out of interest, if any of you have any idea of things that you'd like me to show you how to cook on a live channel like this, I'm more than happy to do that. Just write in the comments what you'd like to see cooked, and if I have the time, I'll create a video specifically on that particular recipe that you would like to see done. I also do desserts. I love desserts. So if you have any desserts in mind, feel free to mention them. And I will make a set of videos if I get responses to this one, because this is fun. So, making this again, stirring this. See how I change between this and that? Because I'm just stirring water. So it's not like I have to worry about contamination or anything like that. It's okay to add a bit of water to this. Right, now, I've got to a place where the mushrooms are starting to go soft, the tomato's starting to go a little bit wrinkly. It's not really cooked properly yet, but it's enough for me to add the meat. So when you get your meat, like I said, I've got 5% fat on here, which is the lowest you can get in England, in the main supermarkets. Extra lean would be better, but this is just lean. If you can get anything lower than that, then bonus. If you have to go with a higher amount of fat, all you'll see is more liquid appear at the bottom of the pan when you put in the meat, because what happens is the fat turns into fatty liquid, and that just helps cook the meat quicker. You've got to squidge it around a little bit, push it in as close as you can to the bottom of the pan, because we want this to cook. We don't want it sitting on top of the vegetables and not going anywhere. You might have noticed I only put in a quarter of the meat, and that's just purely because I want to get the liquids going inside the pan. The liquids mix in with the vegetables and it cooks the meat faster, and it cooks the vegetables faster too. Have a look at the food here, and it looks very good. The spaghetti is cooking fast, and that's a good sign. See, if you do this right, you can time it so these cook at exactly the same amount of time, and that way you save time. People aren't hungry for so long, and yeah, it means that you can manage everything in one place. Now you will need to have a little bit of multitasking in your mind to do this, but you can do it separately. I just like to, when I cook it and I serve it, it comes out completely cooked on both sides, both plates. Basically I want it to be hot. I want it to be hot for the spaghetti and hot for the meat as well. I don't want cold spaghetti with hot meat or hot spaghetti with cold meat. It just doesn't look very presentable when you serve it up. So at this point I'd add a bit of sage. Be as liberal as you want, it doesn't actually matter. The more you have, the more flavoursome it becomes. You want to put it in at this stage because you want that sage to really soak into the meat and make the meat taste good. Now, I'll show you this. See how the meat has changed its colour from red to meat colour, call it. That is the stage you want to get to before you add the next bit of meat. Okay? So, more meat. Spill a bit there. Don't want to get that stuck. There we go. I think I'll add the rest. There we go. So, make sure you clear up. And at this point, it's good to wash your hands because you've been touching raw meat, and you don't want to cross-contaminate with anything else you touch later on. You might forget to wash your hands. So, if you have touched raw meat, always wash your hands straight after. Yep. So there we go. So now, making this come in. Some of this meat was a tad colder than I was expecting it to, in the sense that it has a couple of ice particles on, but because it was in the fridge, it's been in the fridge for ages, it's fine. It's not like it was a frozen block of meat. As long as you manage to break it up when you push the spoon in, you're okay. As long as it cooks all the way through, you're okay. It's when you have a block of frozen meat and you try and cook it, and then you find out that you get halfway through your food and it's red at the bottom. You don't want that. One, it's unhealthy. You're not going to like it. Two, it'll be freezing cold, so not going to be tasting good. And three, your guests aren't going to appreciate raw meat at the bottom of their spaghetti bolognese. Let's see how this is going. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's nearly done, in fact. I'm going to turn that down a bit so we don't end up overdosing. This is going well. I haven't added the sauce yet, you might have noticed, because I actually look for all of the meat to turn from red to brown before I add the sauce, because if I add the sauce now, I won't know which bits of meat are cooked and which aren't. And I want to really see that every bit of meat is cooked before I add that sauce. Sometimes, on the rare occasion, if I'm in a hurry, I'll wait till 99% of it is showing as brown, and then I'll add the sauce because I know the last bit will be cooked. But you need to have a little bit of experience to know when that is. You don't want it to go wrong at this point in time. You will notice if you've got, if you're cooking this and you've got more than 5% fat of your beef, you will notice that there is a pool of water forming at the bottom of your pan. Now, it's good because it speeds up the cooking process because it boils inside the water. It's not really water, it's liquidized fat. I often, if I'm using that kind of high levels of fat, I will drain it at this point because I want, not drain it completely, but drain enough so that when I serve up it doesn't just come into a pool of fat. If I'm 5% like I am right now, it's alright. You can see straight away that there is a little bit of liquid at the bottom. It's not too bad, and of course as you're cooking it, it's boiling itself away. Let me show you how that looks. See? Really nice. And of course when you add the sauce, well, it's going to add into where the fat is anyway, and it will just add a little bit of flavour. It adds a bit of meaty flavour to the sauce, so it's not so bad. So I'm going to add the sauce now. I personally, not sponsored, but do use Lloyd Grossman tomato and basil because it's very, it brings a lot of flavour into the cooking. If you use a sauce like Dolmio, which I have used in the past, I find that it doesn't taste like real tomatoes have been used. I think that Lloyd Grossman, you can look at the labels. I think you should always check the labels and check how much tomato is in the sauce, how much basil is in the sauce, and just make sure there's no E numbers in there or anything like that. All of these sauces contain dodgy ingredients, but I find that Lloyd Grossman, for me, in where we shop, seems to have the best flavours coming out of it. So, but you know, choose whatever you want. If you do decide to use just a tomato only sauce, I do recommend you put more herbs in, maybe add some basil or thyme or something, just to add a bit more flavour and bring it out. This is going to taste amazing because it's got, the sauce is now done, the meat's now done. If I show you how it looks, okay, that's, well, there we go, that's cooked, that's looking good. It is a little bit juicy, but that's okay because, you know, it can handle a little bit of juice, just not a lot. And the spaghetti's done, so I'm going to turn these off now. Right, now, here's where we serve. Now, there's many ways to serve. Most people sprinkle some kind of cheese over the top of your bolognese, and I'm all for that. Right now I haven't got any sprinkled cheese, so I'd have to make do with what I've got. But let me show you how I do this. So bear with me a sec, I've just got to wipe this over. Because you never know what's on this. I mean, you could have raw meat on here and you're putting a plate onto raw meat. That's not a good idea. Okay, let's see how that works out. Right, so first of all, drain this. There you are. Get as much of the water away as possible because you don't want a wet plate. There we go. Now, if I get a utensil, a fork. Right, so you see how quick that was. What's that on the timer? Oh, we are on 18 minutes. So a 20-minute dish that was. Really simple. Okay, ready to serve straight away. So if I bring this out, there we go. I'll just get a bit more of the spaghetti. I'm trying to split it over the two of us, so don't want to put too much on the plate. Don't know whose this is going to be, but there we go. That's enough. Plop that on there. There you go. So add a little pool in the middle. That really helps to. It's got a lot of sauce. You can then direct it so you get most on the plate. Okay. So scoop up the meat like so. Try not to get much sauce on the plate if you can help it. The great thing about this is if you've done as much as I've done, there's more for seconds for people to come back. So that's always exciting. Okay, so there you go. That's done. If you had a bit of cheese and sprinkled it over the top, it would look amazing. But here's the finished product. Spaghetti Bolognese.